It's finally here, the long-awaited, long-announced offensive to retake northern Iraq's largest city from ISIS. Back in 2014, Mosul became the biggest prize for a jihadist group, a city that fell without much of a fight. The origins of ISIS in Mosul are Iraqi. The leader is Iraqi. We're going to get the latest on a battle that's now playing out in a city still home to up to 1.5 million citizens. How to prevent the Aleppo-style carpet bombing of civilians. We'll also look at what could be a scramble for the river-lined capital of an oil-rich area. Who will control Mosul when the dust settles? Turkey's president, wary that Shia militias may want to hang around after the Sunni city's been retaken. There are also Kurdish fighters backed by the U.S. military. Could ousting ISIS be the prelude to more trouble? Today in the WENTE debate, we're looking at the Battle of Mosul with former UN General Dominique Trinquant. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us. Thanks as well from Dubai to Rasha Al-Akidi, fellow at the Al-Mesbar Studies and Research Center and a native of Mosul. Thank you for being with us. From London, Mehmet Avcı, former Turkish diplomat. Nice to see you again.
Likewise, thank you.
From Washington, Abbas Kadima, senior fellow in foreign policy at Johns Hopkins University. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
The WENTE debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. It's day one of what's billed as weeks, possibly months of fighting by all accounts. The battle to retake Mosul is going to be a long one. Clément Bonneau.
The battle begins. Tanks are moving towards Mosul as Iraqi and Kurdish troops get ready for the fight of their lives.
Today, we're going to fight until we die.
The operation to drive the Islamic State group out of Iraq's second largest city was announced just before dawn on Monday morning by the Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi.
The hour of victory has arrived. The operation to liberate Mosul has begun. The forces leading the operation are the brave Iraqi army and police forces. They and no one else will be entering Mosul to liberate it. They're there for your sake.
Iraqi forces have spent months preparing for the operation. Troops have been deployed around the city, along with tanks and heavy artillery. They're backed up by Kurdish Peshmerga fighters positioned to the north and east. Signs that the offensive was imminent came hours earlier when the Iraqi army showered Mosul with leaflets warning residents to stay indoors. Their fate is now a top concern for aid groups. The United Nations has warned of a potential humanitarian catastrophe. More than 1 million people live inside the sprawling city, and there are fears that they could be used as human shields by jihadist fighters desperate to hold on to their last stronghold.
All right, lots to talk about. Let's begin, General Trinquant, by taking a look at the map of Mosul on the Tigris River. And we see here that it's ISIS is surrounded on 3 sides, and it's different players that are attacking the city from different directions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, of course. Mosul, that's why Mosul is so important. It's not only because it's a large city and very wealthy city. It's also because it's just at the border, the French, between the Kurdish part and the Iraqi part. So that's why because remember that the Peshmerga were the only soldier who didn't disbanded in front of ISIS. And the Iraqi army disbanded completely 2 years ago, and now they are back. And so it's interesting because the powerful Peshmerga will play the card during the conquest of Mosul in order to put a balance in the negotiation in the future of Iraq.
So is the strategy here to encircle the city as soon as possible, or offer a way so that these fighters can get out of that urban area so as to spare more civilians?
Normally, I'm not sure about the plan. They should be an exit door in order for the jihadists who want to leave to be able to leave, because if they are not able to leave, they will fight very fiercely. And so that should be the plan. But I'm not sure that it is really the plan. And if currently, how many jihadists are inside Mosul? We don't know. Some are saying 2,000, others are saying 4,000, we don't know. And probably part of the jihadists inside the city will be able to just leave their weapon when it will be the end of the battle. They will leave their weapon and just join the population.
So if you've got Kurdish forces, you've got different Sunni Arab forces, Shia militias, the Iraqi army, who plus U.S., French air power, other nations, who's coordinating it all? Who's in charge?
The coalition, meaning
what does that mean?
Mainly the American, in fact, are coordinating the Iraqi, are coordinating all the air force, are coordinating the artillery, and are coordinating the overall tactical battle.
Does that mean that Kurdish forces take orders from Baghdad?
I mean, not from Baghdad. That's why I'm saying the American, because the American coalition is giving guidance to all this force in order to fight the battle.
Let me ask you, Rasha Al-Akidi, first of all, what was your reaction when we woke up this morning to the news that this offensive was on?
Oh, this morning I've been up since 2 a.m. last night. I haven't slept at all. So obviously I'm very anxious, very excited, and also very worried, of course.
Very worried. Have you any news from people inside of the city?
No, honestly, I haven't been able to contact anyone since mid-July. That's when the internet service was completely severed, the same for phone calls. The last I heard was last month from a relative of mine, and she basically had 6 words. All she said is we're free and we're optimistic. And that's all I heard from her. And I assume she meant she was talking about the impending battle at the time.
All right, because we're hearing a lot of claims about what's going on inside of the city. How do you feel that, we were just talking about it with General Trinquant, how do you feel about the way that this makeshift, and I'll call it a makeshift coalition, is coming together? Is this the best possible scenario?
I think it's the only scenario if we're going to be realistic. No one is looking for compensation at this time. No one wants to compromise at this time. So there has to be a makeshift coalition if we want to go forward and liberate the city.
How long do you think it's going to take, knowing Mosul?
Knowing Mosul, I do believe that the east side of the river, or Janib al-Aysar, as we call it, might be liberated within, let's say, a month, or at least stabilized relatively within a month. The other side of the river, it might take a long time, 2 or 3 months at least.
All right, 8 agencies braced for a mass exodus, hundreds of thousands expected to flee. We can show images of the Debaga displacement camp, opened in 2015 to shelter people that are fleeing places previously occupied by ISIS. Rasha Al-Akidi, we're hearing, as we saw in that report at the outset, citizens of Mosul are being advised to stay put. What would you advise people to be doing?
They're trying to stay put. I believe the numbers, the estimation is out of proportion. There is no possible way hundreds of thousands can actually leave. They would have left already if that were a possibility, but they can't. The closest checkpoint to the KRG region is very, very far from the neighborhoods. It would take them probably days just walking on foot to get there. And this is in the midst of an armed conflict with coalition airstrikes, possibly targeting anything mobile. It's too much of a risk. I don't think that hundreds of thousands will actually leave. I do think that, yes, they will probably choose to stay, and they trust the government at this point. If the government is telling them to stay, they will stay. At least the vast majority. If a couple thousand manage to escape, I'd be surprised.
They trust the government, but we've seen in places like Fallujah, civilians caught in the crossfire or treated as suspects. Do you think that's going to be different this time?
I have wishful thinking. Honestly, yes. Let me just say I hope so. Probably, I still think the majority of the civilians will choose to stay because they do not have another option.
Abbas Kadima, what are the lessons that you have learned from the retaking of places like Fallujah and Ramadi, where there was a lot of bad blood, especially at the fact that the locals say that some of the Shia militias acted like conquerors rather than liberators.
Well, thanks for having me. Lessons normally are learned from one town to another are not perfectly matching because of the differences between one town and another. And Mosul will be different than Ramadi and Fallujah. The terrain is different. The forces and the nature of the forces that are going into town will be different. So I believe that we will probably see more lessons the government took from the early cities. I'm sure that there will be more care taken to preserve the lives of the civilians, especially that many of them, as Russia said, they will not be able to leave because of the circumstances. It's very hard, and like that, what happened in Ramadi and in Fallujah and Tikrit to a certain extent. But Mosul is completely different. I hope that what the General Tranco was talking about earlier, that there will be a place for or an exit corridor for the terrorists to leave. That will make the battle less severe, because having spent my college years in Mosul, I happen to know the city very well, and I would be really heartbroken to imagine the city is bombed the way Tikrit or Ramadi or Fallujah were. The city is a museum in every wall of it. There is some history. So I hope that there will be a liberation with minimal fighting, both for the sake of the people and the civilians' lives who matter most. And then, of course, also the heritage of the city that is irreplaceable. But, I think the lesson for the government is that they need to learn from what happened in the past. Probably one thing about the exit of the civilians, as the forces draw near the combat areas, the city center or the residence areas, they will most likely come towards the Iraqi forces. The Prime Minister mentioned that the ones who will enter the city center will be the Iraqi army and the federal police. So simply there will be no more room for demagoguery or warning the people that these people are out there to get them. I think the Prime Minister made some good messages to comfort the people of Mosul, assure them that the major purpose of the city, the operation is to liberate the people and liberate the city, and no hidden agenda for revenge or any kind of bad blood.
Let me ask you about this, because this time, contrary to the liberation of Fallujah or Ramadi or Tikrit, you've got as well Kurdish fighters in the mix, as well as the pro-Baghdad forces. And you have the U.S.-led foreign coalition that General Tranco was talking about. Would you say that that's going to keep honest? Because I'm reading disturbing comments, most notably one of the components of the so-called popular mobilization forces, and that is the forces of Qais al-Khazali. He is quoted, he's an Iranian-backed militia leader who's quoted as saying, "The Battle of Mosul is revenge for the killing of Hussein," a revered figure in Shia Islam. Let me ask you about this. That doesn't bode well when you read that kind of statement, Abbas Kadima, just a statement like that being made just ahead of this offensive.
Look, I'm not a spokesperson for any of the popular mobilization forces, but I believe that the media reporting on it and the misrepresentation of what he said is completely outrageous. I'm a Shia, and when I listen to these things, I know what the context is for that. Even the Prime Minister talked about taking revenge through the operations of Mosul. And I even put a note on it on Facebook. No one really has it in his mind that the Prime Minister or Khazali is out there to go and shoot civilians and revenge for Hussein. This is all symbolism talk. This is all mobilizing the forces that are, quite frankly, Shia, who are mobilized through their own heritage, through their own theological sort of background. But if you look at it, I mean, the Sunnis who are the civilians and Iraqi civilians, you will find them in Karbala, you will find them in other places. Karbala is the heartland of Shiism, and there are basically thousands of families from Fallujah and from the rest of Sunni provinces. No one is out there to go and take revenge from them for the killing of Hussein. But definitely there is this symbolism talk about the, in Iraq, there is this message that is being sent. ISIS are the descendants of the same ideology, the same modus operandi, and the same really thinking fashion of those who killed Hussein 1400 years ago. And if there is a talk about taking back that fight or evening some scores, it's between Iraqis, their Shi'is, their Sunnis, and their Christians, with this kind of throwback ideology that goes back to the 7th century. But Qais al-Khazali is not out there to go and kill some Sunnis to even scores from 1400 years ago. That's outrageous, really, by the media and other people who demagogued the speeches. Again, I'm not a spokesperson.
Let me bring in on this, Mehmet Alcu. Before I ask you, Mehmet, about the Turkish reaction, what are your thoughts on this Sunni-Shia divide at the outset of the Battle of Mosul?
Well, clearly, what we see is that U.S. is leading this effort, although it makes a very clear point that Baghdad is leading the effort. And as we heard from other speakers, U.S. has coordinated the Iraqi forces. U.S. has paid the Peshmerga salaries and trained them so that they can also fight alongside. And this makeshift coalition, having 60 nations providing air cover, and also announcing months and months in advance that this attack will take place. So I have serious doubts how successful this is going to be. My real worry is about the civilian population, 1.5 million population, mostly Sunni Arabs. And then you have about 5,000 ISIS militants and a huge international coalition, plus the Iraqi forces, Shia forces, and the Kurdish Peshmerga, and perhaps some Sunni tribes, tribal forces, which Turkey trained in Bashika camp. So it is a huge effort that will be very, very difficult to coordinate. I'm very much worried about the loss of innocent civilian life there. It has to be carefully executed. And what we see is that probably if we let the ISIS militants flee the city and go to Raqqa, this is one way, so there will be less bloodshed. If they stay on, and if the Shia forces, because Iraqi forces are also largely Shia dominated, plus the involvement of Iran, Major General Qasem Soleimani, he was in the region a couple of weeks ago, still watching quite carefully what's happening. So there's a very strong hand of Iran in defeating ISIS through either Iraqi forces or directly through the Shia forces. So what happened in Fallujah is a reminder to the population there, no matter what assurances you can provide, that there might be sectarian revanchist approach. Many of them might be killed. Therefore, there is a need to provide a good space of comfort to majority Sunni Muslims living in Mosul.
Reassure them. I'm going to have to cut you off. We're going to take a quick break and come back and look at those divides among the coalition. When we come back, you're watching the France 24 debate.